Michael R Fletcher. Now sit back and prepare to be entertained.
Welcome back to the Dripping Bucket, where 3 or fewer people come online and say shit and talk about books. I still have Michael Fletcher's meat puppet sitting in his chair, and this time I've added Andy Peloquin from
famous self-help author.
Yeah. Yeah,
future best-selling Tony Robbins competitor.
There we go.
Time ninja.
We needed a French Canadian on the scene.
Yeah, I am about as French Canadian as I am Japanese, right? Like less so probably.
At least you have the French Canadian name. You tricked
exactly.
Me. Yeah. So, as I was saying, I would love to pick your brain about social media, because it's like I said a second ago, it feels like, to my perception, that all of a sudden you've burst onto all of
after
the
46 books he's become an overnight success.
I don't mean in a publishing sense, I mean in a platform sense, because when I was hanging out on the scene a couple of years ago, I felt like I had a pretty good idea of who the big publishers were in the cycle, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's because at the time you were more on Facebook, and I just wasn't, so I wasn't familiar with you. And then recently you've made the switch onto Instagram, you're on TikTok, you're on Twitter, and now we know each other and we're friends, and it's really cool to see you do these reels and get thousands.
It's all because you wrote a damn good book, Krystle. I think I reached out to you and I said, fuck, this is good. This is, I think, our very first encounter was me, cold messaging her as that annoying reader saying, this is amazing.
So annoying.
But it's we've been in the same orbit for so long. Same as you, Michael. Like I said on Twitter the other day, I've just read not your first book. I, for the first time, read a book of yours, but I've had Beyond Redemption, I think, on my Kindle since the first time you did a freebie, which was probably in 2017 or something.
Oh wow.
But yes, it's so weird. So I'm making a point to read more, and this is directly tied to social media. So Facebook was the thing that I will say broke me out, in the sense of I released 2 series, what was called the Last Bu Solari, which is the original version of Darkblade, with one small press, and then Child of the Night Guild with another small press in 2015 and 2016, I believe. And as is the case when working with some small presses, it went so far and no further. So I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to do this myself. So I basically spent a year learning Amazon ads and Facebook ads. And Facebook ads came more naturally to me because I got to play around with things. Amazon was very much like you write 10 types of copy and that's it. That's where it goes, right? With Facebook, I could do anything. So I was
target audiences more specifically, I think, right?
Amazon is laser precision. Facebook is it's the scalpel versus the hammer. Both are super useful, but with Facebook
you can't use them the same way.
Exactly. And with Facebook, there's the social proof where you get likes and comments and shares, and you get to engage with people, and you get to invite people to like your page. So over the since 2018, basically, I think I've grown to 10,000 followers on Facebook just through my ads. People engage with the ads, I interact with them, and I invite them to like my page. It's kind of a weekly thing, and it just grows organically. Facebook was kind of the place that I knew. It was the social media platform I understood. It's text-based. I am not a very visual person, so the idea of taking pictures of things just did not work for me. All the beautiful pictures that are on my Instagram or Facebook, my wife took them. That tells you exactly how good of a photographer I am. But then as I was, I've been on Facebook. I have my own author group on Facebook. I'm admin, the Indie Fantasy Addicts. I'm in all the big Facebook groups. And it can only go so far, in the sense that there's only so many people on Facebook and the audience of people.
Readers, yeah.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, well, what's next? Where's the next place? And I've got my mailing list. So then seeing people being more active on Instagram and then on TikTok and hearing sort of how these things drove not only engagement, but then also sales, it was like, okay, this is the next place to go, something to work on. And just kind of mid 2023, my wife was working at 911 as a call taker, and the night shifts were getting to her. And so it was like, no, you know what? Quit. Stop doing that. She's a professional translator, so she would actually have some days where she would do her shift and then come home and do some hours of translation work. So I was like, no, stop that.
Jeez.
Don't do that. No. Just focus on your translation. Yeah. And at the same time, she was interested in learning about social media. So she started doing a social media course, and I was like, we'll just use my account as a dummy to practice on. The worst thing that happens is that we don't see any kind of success. And so by her going through this and learning this, kind of talking stuff over with me, working together to create the content that we were testing, it kind of pushed me to start on Instagram. So I was like, all right, well, let's just test it and see what sticks. So I was doing photos, I was doing stories, I was doing reels. My first reels are awkward and stilted as shit. Like, I am not a good actor. I did not get the acting genes, but I the more I did it, the more I realized there were certain aspects of it that I enjoyed. I love raving about books. Like, I could do that all day, every day. You tell me a book I love and settle in because we're going for an hour kind of thing. So
that's so surprising.
Yeah, right.
This current
Who could have known? Realizing that this is what I could do. I didn't have to try to do anything else, right? I didn't have to try to offer writing tips to people. I didn't have to try to do anything. I could do anything I wanted, and if it didn't succeed, it didn't succeed. If it did, it did. So I just kind of kept throwing stuff at the wall to see what stuck. And the first thing that went viral for me, it was over on TikTok. I just started in January, and I was in Argentina in late January, early February, and the Airbnb that I was at had books. And I lived in Mexico for many years, and books are not a thing there. Like, people don't really read. They've got maybe 5 books in the entire house. Whereas this random Airbnb had 20, 30 books, including some in English. So I just filmed the video saying, guys, this is so cool. I'm in Argentina and there are books everywhere. And that went viral. I think it got like 100,000 views on TikTok, which is great. Wow. And I think picked up 200-300 followers in the time that I was there in Argentina. So I was like, well, this is cool. People want to see more reader-specific stuff. I'm engaging with readers. Yeah. And something I've noticed that a lot of people on Instagram and TikTok is they make book-adjacent content where they're all about, I'm dressing up as a character from A Court of Thorns and Roses, and it gets a ton of likes and a ton of follows, but it doesn't actually give the kind of value that I want when I'm on the platform. What I want is someone whose tastes I appreciate saying, hey, this book's fucking amazing. Read it, buy it, right?
Read books, yeah.
That's what I wanted from social media. And understanding that, I was like, okay, well, this is who I'm going to be. I'm going to be someone who tells you, I love this book. You might love it too. And that's kind of the way that my platform has been. And I still, have to talk about my books to sell it and be visible and stuff. But the thing that people really engage with more and more is just raving about books I love, books I'm enjoying. The video that really blew up was just 10 beginner level fantasy books in 60 seconds or less. Like, I'm wearing an ugly shirt. The filming quality is pretty bad, but it's gotten up to like 500,000 views or something and like 3,000 follows from one video. And I was like, well, let's see what happens. Wow. And like, I don't think it even worked right away. It was just, I posted it, it got a few views, a few likes, a few comments, and then like a week or two later, all of a sudden I look at my feed and I'm like, wait, how did I get 100 followers overnight? Right. And it was just that video had gone viral randomly. And it's just me talking holding up books. Look, here's a pretty book.
Okay, buddy.
For 60 seconds.
Yeah.
But then,
well, it seems to be the nice thing about content like that. Like, especially if you've got a couple of books, that's several opportunities to have somebody go, "Oh, hey, I know that book," rather than just doing like the one thing and sticking to it. It seems like the way you diversify what you're highlighting. Like sometimes you do those romance ones that target, a specific slice, but then sometimes you go the other way, and so it's an interesting way to like it. Talking about it after it's successful, it feels like, well, no, of course that worked. But then when you're in the thick of trying to figure out content like that, it's not as easy as just like, oh yeah, I'll just throw books around. But it is that easy. Like, that's
it really is.
My point
it's just that simple.
It's frustrating. Yeah.
You just kind of figure out what it is. The thing that I think that I've sort of been marinating in for the last few months is that, what do I want to see? What do I enjoy making? That enjoyment comes through, and that's what people connect with. Sure, I could be more specific with the keywords and the captions. I could be more targeted with the thing. I've done a few panderings here and there. I read A Court of Thorns and Roses and made videos out of it and got people to follow me there. Great. Like that's easy. But then at the end of the day, those aren't necessarily the things that make me want to keep doing it for years and years and years. What does make me want to keep doing it is, being able to share books that I really, really enjoy. And then actually, especially if it's like my fellow author friends, seeing them getting sales from the books, like that right there is the best thing in the world for me. If I was going to be any kind of influencer, that's what it would be. Samurai is, the next step after this, but
the next thing.
But no, like I love being able to go onto Instagram or onto Twitter or TikTok, and I know I've got like 5 people whose book tastes run identical to my own, and all I have to do is message them and say, "Hey, am I gonna love this book?" And their answer immediately tells me what I want to be. That guy that people are like, "Hey, am I gonna love this book?" And that's really been my favorite part about getting a bit bigger on Instagram and TikTok, is that I get to tell people, "You're going to love this book." And then they message me and say, "Holy shit, I love this book." Like that is the reward in and of itself. Any sales that I've made for my own books through the platform are delightful, but very, very incidental.
Right. And that makes sense too. Like, it's kind of the motto that we try to tell ourselves when we're writing as well. It's like, if we're writing the books that we want to read, and if we're enjoying ourselves, then this process with so many pain points in it becomes less of a hurdle. And so it makes sense then that it's flipped for social media, where it's like, if you hate the content that you're making, of course you're struggling with it. Whereas if you are pushing content that's fun for you to make anyway, it's easier to stay consistent and build.
Yeah. And that consistency is really what it comes down to. So for about 3 months, I was posting 3 times a day to TikTok and posting twice a day to Instagram. 95% of it video content, because video is more likely to grow than Instagram posts.
Because it repopulates into people's feeds.
And then it's also more like there's more to engage with than just a pretty picture. So you get to share a bit of your personality through the thing. You get to actually engage with people directly. You get to do so much more. Like one of my best videos was me talking about falling asleep trying to read at 9:30. Like that video, somehow people loved that. I mean, it cracked me up doing it.
I remember that one.
And so it's like you get to share a bit of yourself through the videos you film, much more so, at least for me, than I could ever imagine a picture being. So that's what's really drawn me to it. And I think that just having fun with it, taking the pressure off of it, like I see Instagram and TikTok as a platform to use for visibility and for sales. But if I don't sell anything, I'm not wasting my time. I'm still getting people connecting with me, and then eventually it's going to come through and it's going to sell.
Yeah.
So like
especially when you
exactly right. I can appeal to every. I just need a
books.
romantasy series, and then I can appeal to everybody.
Yeah, there you go. Co-write when.
I
Let's go.
actually came up with, or a friend and I, a co-author. We are going to write a second chance, cozy food truck romantic fantasy. I like
wow.
I know it does
all
everything, but I fucking love this story idea because it's just like I've always wanted to write cozy. I just don't have the ability to write. Like I am the epic violent guy, right? I don't do cozy.
I feel that.
But I think it would be really fun to explore the cozy aspect, the deep emotionality of the cozy, in the same way that with romance. I do not write romance because I don't have that brain. Like I've having read all the romance novels that I have, or romantasy especially, there are so many things that I know I can't do. Like I have to co-write it.
You never would have thought.
Because my brain doesn't work that way. Pulling it back to you, Krystle, that scene with Tashway and Stella baking fucking tarts, that was the best scene of the entire book, and nothing happened, right? They are just, but it's like I don't have the capability to write the textural and the sentimental and the emotional and intellectual elements that they have there. Now, you give me someone, fighting to save their brother, or someone losing someone close to them, or, dying horrendously all day, every day. But so it's like, I need someone to basically if I write a romantic fantasy, it's going to be super violent and then super romantic at the same time. And I'm going to handle this side all the way.
Yeah, I'm doing that. Oh. Yeah, I know what you mean though about how like in theory, in a perfect world, it's just a skill, and you just do it. But I don't know, like it's really hard to get your brain into that space if it's just not wired a specific way. And I think that's me for like the big sprawling epic battle type fantasy, which like I have so much respect for people who can pull that off and make that interesting. But there's a reason that stuff doesn't happen in my books. Like I can't with the details of stuff like that. I love reading it. I wish I could write it. I don't know. I'd have to.
I've come to see my limitations as an author very, very clearly. Always trying to push the boundaries, right? Always trying to be better and do more and experiment. I'm reading the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rocchio. His action scenes are not great. Like there is a certain frenetic sharpness to action scenes, and Michael, you did an amazing job with this in The Shadow of Their Dying. The frenetic pacing of those sharp, choppy action scenes. I mean, Joe Abercrombie, Brandon Sanderson's more active moments. Like these guys, you read their books, and you are spellbound by the action and all the emotionality and character moments, and everything happens through the action. And before you know it, you blink and you're 20 pages in. Sword of Kaigen, right? That middle scene, that middle 50% of the book is just you blink and you're through it because the action is so sharp. It's so good. It's so deep and compelling. Sun Eater does not have that. What Sun Eater has is everything else, right? It's got the complex worlds I'm not capable of creating. It's got the nuanced details between two seemingly identical characters that I don't necessarily do very well. So I'm like, okay, here's what I do well. Here's what I don't do well. I'm going to try to do this stuff better, but I know that this is my strength. So I'm going to keep leaning on this and use this to prop up this. It's kind of like, but accepting where my strengths and weaknesses are.
It's almost like sleight of hand. It's almost like sleight of hand, like especially if you're aware of it. Personally, like people mention the violence in my books a lot, and it always kind of surprises me because I don't feel like those books are very action-y. But you describe a shoulder dislocating like a chicken leg popping out of joint, and people remember that, and it's like this little trick that I pulled on people where it's like, I've convinced you I've written a really big action scene, but actually like this was just a moment. Like, actually, I should have checked. I don't remember how many pages that is, but it seems to come up all the time, and it's really interesting.
You can tell the best action scenes are very visceral and they're very sharp.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell who knows how to use the sharper verbs and who relies on just kind of the regular verbs. Like, I've made a study of the verbs in action scenes, in the sense of you don't swing a sword.
That's an
you hack, right? You slash, like, everything has to be these real impactful, strong, consonant words. And that gives it so much power. Whereas the people who don't necessarily do action as well, they tend to go with the weaker verbs and the weaker nouns and the weaker adjectives. And so it doesn't have...
It's almost like a lack of commitment.
Now, I do not have the adjective vocabulary to write all of the romance and textural and emotional elements that goes into that. So this is where I'm like, look, I'm going to write the action scenes, and I'm going to find a co-author who is just amazing with the romance to do all that stuff. I don't care what they're wearing. I just want to know how easily you can stab through it or cut it, right?
Or how easily
I mean, that's not really a thing for me, unless it's dressing wounds, right? Like, how well you can conceal that you're actually injured fatally from the rest of your party and then keel over at just the right time in true dramatic fashion.
You need to know how many layers you gotta get through to have a good time.
That's why yeah, exactly. My assassin, he just rips it.
The spicy wound care scene.
I made him superhumanly strong so he doesn't have to deal with lace and corsets and whalebones. He just rips that shit off. Done.
I mean, it's a mood. Like, it definitely works for the right characters. So I respect it.
Like, I tried to write sex scenes, and Phil Tucker is surprisingly good at the steamier stuff. Like, surprisingly good. And he read over mine, and he was like, so here's the list of things that you need to work on. Here's what you did right. And I was like, well, there goes that sex scene from my book. And it was very kindly done, but it was kind of like a battle scene, right? Another thing Phil Tucker's fucking great at.
Yeah. Well, the thing about just like on an advice level, the thing about writing good sex scenes is you just have to accept that you're going to write a lot of really fucking bad ones first, and you just have to let it be awful. And it's almost like you get to shake it out of your system. And once you've written some sentences that are so awful that it burns away your self-conscious embarrassment, then you can write the good stuff.
You're supposed to pretend your mom.
Thankfully, mine does not. These books are too fucking long for her. She does not have the patience for fantasy. I know it's very, and my wife doesn't either. So the two people who I don't want to read it don't read it. So we're good. I know.
Perfect.
No, it's I just don't have the brain for that. And understanding that, I'm like, okay, well, I will just steer into the other aspects. I love romance. Like, my books all have romances, but it's all about the two people coming together as opposed to anything else. Like, there is always a very strong emotional element to the romances. And I think they're some of the best parts of the story, but it doesn't have anything to do with the sexual aspect of it, which there is none. And it's just about two people just finding each other and finding that connection. I've been married for 15 years, and anytime I want to write some kind of romance scene, I'm just like, how would I want this to play out between my wife and I? Or like, so many times I've showed her the scenes, and I was like, I wrote this little analogy of, a diamond that has two hearts, and no matter how far apart they go, they can connect, just like. And I was like, I was just thinking of you as I wrote this. And that's the romance stuff that I can sink my teeth into. It's the other stuff that I'm just like, I don't have the writer brain for that. And I'm okay with that.
We're gonna have to like pull you back on, and then I'll hold JD Evans on at the same time, and you and Fletcher can like make Sturley faces, and me and JD can like teach you some stuff. Because Fletcher, you're also leaning towards romance too, and so it's like
I will just write a terrible sex scene and revel in it, even if one of them
Pull a Joe Abercrombie. You mean?
I'm like, that's fine.
So yeah, yes.
Oh, yeah,
well, that's also in
pure
Blackstone
ignorance.
Heart,
That's
isn't it?
one
Like
last
he's
time.
stitching parts of her back on, and it's really sexy. Blackstone Heart puts the romance in necromancy.
That's awesome. No, have you read the first law, the Age of Madness? Sorry, where he does but he leans into it so hard that two people having sex for the first time are just so bad at it. It was really, really funny and really embarrassing to listen to. It made me very glad that I was listening on my headphones and not like, out loud or something, because it was like, good Lord, this is bad and described badly so well that it was so much fun.
That it works, yeah. Yeah. I always feel really bad about audio listeners, because like I heard from a reader who was listening in his car in like rush hour traffic. So you just know like half the people around him could hear some of that too. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. So that is the hazard. The hazard of writing sex scenes is that your readers will tell you about their experiences with the sex scenes, and it's like, we didn't actually need to make eye contact.
That is awesome. I love the idea of that. Now I want to write one just so I can get and you get some stuffy British narrator to record it. Just revel in the torture that they're going through to record that. Ooh. Damn, the mischievous and cruel side of me wants to do it now.
There we go. I somehow activated the hyperfocus. It's gonna happen now in a Peloquin novel.
Yeah, we'll see.
Alrighty. And on that note,
I'm definitely putting together the four of us. I gotta have to call Jen and like, guess what I'm doing to you. Okay, we should. Okay, yeah, Fletcher, take us out before I commit to more things than I can promise.
Hi, Andy. Thank you again for joining us today and hanging out and chatting. It has been a pleasure, and holy shit, I am like in awe of your like.
Yeah, that stack of books. It's
prolific. Like that's insane. That's crazy.
Like, do you have the picture?
It's it's on Instagram.
Books, or.
And it's
if you send it to me, I would love to make that like this the cover photo.
I'll do that.
Yeah, and I guess we'll stop recording for the back end business. But yeah,
thank you for having me. This is a blast.
For coming on and chatting with us so much. We look forward to your author marketing advice, self-help book titled Samurai's.
There you go.
Samurai's Ad Course.
How to slice and dice the competition.
Yeah. There you go. Thanks so much for coming on, and thank you everybody who listened to this foolishness as I try to convince two self-respecting men to write more sex scenes. I appreciate it.